In the first week of January 1945, the Allies began to recover from the unexpected German offensive in December of last year. The Allies had once again the initiative and resumed their advance on the Western Front. After 2 months of fighting with the last defenders of Germany, they reached the Rhine River in early March. One of the first Allied attempts to cross the river was at the city of Cologne. Cologne is an ancient city that goes back to the days of the Roman Empire, and it is located near the borders with Belgium and Holland on both sides of the Rhine. By 1945, the Allies had launched 262 air raids against the city, destroying 61% of its built-up area. Except for a few isolated units, the majority of German troops in the area retreated to the eastern side of the Rhine to prevent any Allied crossings from there. On the 6th of March, no Allied troops had crossed the river yet, and the US 3rd Armored Division entered Cologne. In the city's center remained a German Panther tank determined to make a last stand in front of the city's cathedral, which is one of Germany's greatest symbols of national pride. Unaware of the lone Panther tank, 2 Sherman tanks and their infantry escort approached the cathedral through the Kommodenstrasse. They stopped about 120 meters away from the cathedral because of rubble in the street. Just seconds after they stopped, the leading Sherman tank was hit and destroyed by the Panther tank, killing 3 of the 5 crew members. Here you can see the commander exiting with his leg cut off. The assistant driver survived unharmed and exited the tank from the escape hatch. The Panther was probably located near the dark tunnel of the main train station and moved to the crossing in front of the cathedral later. Some records say that the Panther was already there when the Sherman was destroyed, and that the Americans thought it was knocked out. This seems to be unrealistic, since tank crews never take it for granted that an enemy tank in no man's land is destroyed and shoot at it until it burns. The other Sherman withdrew as it was no match for the Panther, and the infantry called on a nearby T-26 for assistance. The T-26 was a new heavy tank that arrived late in the war and in small numbers. Only 20 T-26 saw action in Europe, and by coincidence, one of those was not just in Cologne, but on a parallel street from where the 2 Shermans made contact with the Panther. The T-26 moved forward to attack the Panther from the flank. In this photograph, you can see the positions of the Panther, the T-26, and of the cameraman who filmed the skirmish. What happened next was described by Corporal Clarence Smoyer, who was the gunner of the T-26. We were told to just move into the intersection far enough to fire into the side of the enemy tank, which had its gun facing up the other street, where the Sherman had been destroyed. However, as we entered the intersection, our driver had his periscope turned toward the Panther and saw their gun turning to meet us. So instead of stopping to fire, our driver drove into the middle of the intersection so we wouldn't be a sitting target. As the T-26 was on the move, Corporal Smoyer fired and hit the Panther. The shell went through the armor and the tank caught fire. In this film, the Germans exit their tank. The first one out is the commander. The radio operator follows. Notice the tracer fire from the T-26 machine gun. The driver and gunner come out next, and soon the Panther is hit a second time. It appears that the gunner is killed after the second hit. Finally, the loader gets out and escapes, before the tank is hit a third time. Of the 4 Germans who escaped, only 3 survived the war. One question frequently asked is, why did the Panther hesitate to fire? The most probable explanation comes from the commander's family. He had explained to them that he did not recognize the T-26 as an American tank. After all, the T-26 was a new tank, and the Panther crew saw it for the first time. Gunner Smoyer writes in his memoirs that even Americans thought sometimes it's a captured German tank. On the same day, another T-26 engaged around Cologne. One of them was destroyed by a Nashorn tank destroyer, and the other destroyed a Tiger tank. In the days that followed, the Americans moved the destroyed Panther to the square between the train station and the cathedral, and it became a popular subject for souvenir photos.